Hello everyone, and welcome to this video tutorial for the Advanced Spawn Manager. In a previous video we covered some advanced features by spawning in this corridor, and we're going to continue that and spawn some enemies in this marketplace here. So I've already gone ahead and set up the scene a little bit. I've created 3 spawn areas, which are boxes, and 3 new waves, intro, main and boss, which are linked to a group and of course to the spawn manager itself. So I'm going to go ahead and view our editor window, which was in Wave and Editor and is only available in the Pro version of the framework. And I'm going to go ahead and select the intro. So I'm going to show you is different wave spawn types here. Up until now we've always used sequentially, so I'm going to show you the other features. It's one and simultaneously, it pretty much speaks for itself. So I'll show you a quick example. I'm going to spawn red and blue enemies. Over 2 seconds, you notice that the runtime is actually up here instead of per instruction. It just keeps things a little bit neater instead of having to just type the same value for each instruction, as we found we did most of the time. And yeah, it will just spawn them both at the same time. Let's give them an interval of about half to see what's going on. And there we go, that'll be it for that instruction. Okay, so let's move on to the next wave. And for this one, we're going to spawn randomly. So for this, when we add instructions here, we're going to see a lot more information. So I'll show you that just now. I'm going to actually just spawn one of each type of enemy that we have for this project. Red and blue, well, blue and red. Okay, so you can already see quite a lot more information. We've tried to keep this as clean as possible, and it's actually quite dynamic. If you want to drop down any of the values that you finished editing on, you can sit and check these boxes. Or if you highlight the controls panel, you can actually choose to select all things or only show one thing at a time to make things easier. We've got more in preferences as well. You can actually be vertical or horizontal. We won't go into this in too much detail. It's pretty self-explanatory. You can just play around with it yourself. So I'm going to go back and actually I'm going to expand all of them since I'm going to be talking about them all. And we're spawning randomly here. So we need to go back and set another runtime. So for this case, we're going to be 5 seconds. And I'm going to put padding of about 3 seconds. I mentioned this variable before. It's basically just a wait between the previous wave and this one to give your players a chance to basically kill the enemies and catch up before we overflow them with too many enemies at once, or too many objects, one of the two. Okay, so let's start with this. We still need a duration. So even though we told the wave to last 5 seconds, it will do 5 seconds regardless of these instructions. The instructions themselves need to say how much time they will take to run. So for example, if you randomly select this instruction, you will spawn only bronze enemies for 2 seconds, and then in this case you'll spawn only default enemies for 1 second. So this is pretty important if you want to switch between the enemies that you're spawning each time. Okay, and interval, this is the same, so I'm going to set this for about half a second as well. As you can see, it's still updating up here, so we're going to spawn 2 or 4 enemies in this case over our duration. And spawn percentage is the most important thing here for spawn randomly. We experimented with a few different ways of explaining this variable and displaying it. Originally we were a flat percentage based, but we found some flaws with that. So instead what we've implemented is that's an integer based system, and it works in a total. So in this particular case, the total here is 25 because the other instructions have a 0% chance to spawn, and so thusly this has a 100% chance. And so if I add another 25 here, this hasn't changed, however its percentage has now changed to 50%. It seems a little backwards, but this is actually a lot easier when you start working with lots of instructions and you start adding new ones on. So for example, in this case, say we want to keep these 50% each, and then we add on a new value of 25%. It's now a little bit confusing. Where do we actually, now say we want to keep these 25% chance each, and we add a new 25. It becomes confusing of how do we actually start editing these variables down, because, well, if we start changing this value, how do we directly control the ratio of how their chance goes down? It's just a bit difficult. So this way is a lot more fine-tuned. We thought it's a lot easier to actually edit these components individually. So for example, we want to drop this down to 20. We'll see we now have a 29% chance, and these have 36. If you guys want to send us feedback on this or any suggested updates, please do. Like I say, we just felt this was actually the simplest solution, but if you don't feel that's the same way, let us know and we'll implement some alternatives that you can choose from. Okay, so that should summarize this wave. I'm going to move on to the boss to show you a final little feature. I'm going to keep it sequential. I'm going to add 2 or 3 instructions actually. So we're going to start with blue, and then we're going to have a wait, and we're going to have a red. This is pretty self-explanatory. Spawn our first enemy, wait this given time, so we're going to wait 3 seconds, and then spawn our next enemy. So this, you can think of this as a little introduction, so we can have quite a lot of enemies. We want it to be, well, quite a lot of enemies. Here we go, 19. So we can have a bit of an intro to be like, oh, building up some tension, give them time to kill the enemies, and then we have our boss, and say we'll just spawn just one of him. And that's essentially it. It should be pretty self-explanatory there. So I'm just going to add a little padding here as well. One more thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to our previous set of instructions, and I've already got one here, and I'm going to turn this into a pause. So we've got a little chance to see everything ticking through as I'll show you this demo. So let's go back to our game and give it a play. So we'll see our previous example where we wait 3 seconds and then our enemy spawn here. 1, 2, 3. And then we'll go through all their triggers. Oh, I've just realized something I forgot to do. I'm going to unpause this now. I need to place one more collider at the end to actually trigger this final wave. So I'm going to go back to our corridor. I'm going to duplicate this trigger, and I'm going to move this trigger into the archway here before the actual marketplace. Just zoom in on that. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now this should actually unpause from that previous instruction, and we'll see our enemy spawning. So let's watch it now. So we'll see our 3 enemies. 1, 2, 3. And here come our triggers. Second one, third one. And we should see nothing spawning in the market. You can't see anything there until I walk through this gate. And now here we go, we see some enemies. Let's watch it from the scene view. So I think that was our intro. And now we're seeing lots of enemies. So I'm guessing this is our main spawning, so we're seeing lots of colours. Yep, here we go. It's a little bit difficult to figure out because I've only got a few different types of enemies. I should probably have implemented a few more. There we go, all the waves are finished and gone through. Okay, so that's our video tutorial. Thanks for watching.